What's the point of siding with the kingdom if Gaun seizes all the land in the region? Jerkniv was choosing the least awful option. For those reasons, the Empire will pretend to back that monster while actually supporting the alliance. If that comes out, there's a high probability the beast will aim to crush us first. At least, if it were me, I'd make an example out of us for sure. Ah yeah, that you would, your majesty. I'll take that as a compliment. Anyway, we can propose the Grand Alliance. We need those countries to form it of their own accord. We need to focus on gathering intelligence from within Nazarick. At the same time, we search for anyone who might be able to defeat him. Do you really think someone like that exists? The leading disciple asked this in a tone that made it clear he had no confidence a person like that would turn up, but he posed the question anyway. Someone who could defeat that unrivaled monster? It seemed impossible, even for a dragon, the strongest race in the world. But Jerkniv's answer was full of confidence. Sure there is, really, there were, in that throne room. Then the disciple understood. He meant the monsters lined up around Aints Aura Mare, the silver-haired girl, the insect and demiurge. You're going to make them defect? I don't really think I am capable of that, but it's still worth a shot. We'll prepare money, status, and members of the opposite sex to see if we can attract them even slightly to our side. It seems like a long shot, of course, but that goes without saying. Aints Gaun has the air of a high king, no one with a ruler like that is going to readily betray him, but we must act nonetheless. This isn't a mere dispute between states. Jerkniv eyed the other three with determination. This is a fight for the continued existence of the human race. It's a fight to protect the future. We must wager our bodies and souls. So I think that's how this emperor will think and then act. If he was more foolish, he might do something unexpected, but I think the chances of that are quite slim. It's convenient that these middling thinkers are easier to read than idiots, Demiurge said, holding up a finger. Do you mean that he desires to form an alliance with the intent to destroy us and Lord Aints? My Dontino. He seems pretty stupid to me. Would it be better for us to make the first move and crush them? Sholtier's disgusted comment was closely followed by Aura's and Mare's input. None of them seemed angry. It was as if they were talking about picking a pebble up off the ground. The bigger problem is Sebas began to speak, but his sentence was finished for him. Are you saying that he plans to convince us to betray Lord Aints? Exactly, Sebas. That Emperor doesn't know the meaning of the word loyalty. Everyone scoffed. Aints and the 41 supreme beings created them. Did those humans really think they would betray their creators? Of course, all this supposition was merely Demiurge's guess, but even that seemed to make the Guardians very uncomfortable. They all had hard glints deep in their eyes. I don't mean to copy Mare, but I am kind of annoyed. Couldn't we just crush them? Something dark had come over Aura for the first time. Sholtier smiled at her. Transforming them into vampires would be the best. If they were high quality, we could put them to work in Nazarick. Cocytus didn't say anything, but he began clicking a warning sound. Everyone, Lord Aints is present. Sholtier's, Aura's, and Cocytus's anger subsided in response to Sebas's level-headed voice. Ho, that's right, everyone, please calm down. Remember what Demiurge said. This is all according to expectations. If you don't enjoy the clowns performing their comedy routine, then what is left? The appropriate response from us is admiration, because everything is happening according to Lord Aints' plan. Right, Lord Aints? Aints' plan? Seems like some guy with the same name as me has come up with some special plan. And I guess part of that plan is that the Baharuth Emperor will create an alliance to oppose Nazarick. I don't get it at all. I'd like to ask that Aints guy what it's all about. He couldn't run away from reality forever. Aints wanted to make a clean break. He wanted to tell them he actually had no plan. Then he wanted to ask what kind of misunderstandings Demiurge and Albedo were operating under. But there was no way he could do that. Aints looked at Albedo and knew without moving his eyes. What he saw was a woman who seemed to be dripping sticky honey. Her entranced eyes were moist. Her cheeks were slightly rosy. It was a reaction to her belief that everything was going according to his plan. She was in love with his wisdom. It was too late to deny everything. Who in this situation would be able to ask, what are we talking about exactly? There was only one thing Aints could say in response to Albedo's question. T's right. He wanted to pat himself on the back for suppressing the tremors in his voice. The Guardians oohed in respect. Tee-hee-hee. As Albedo opened her arms, the wings at her hips also spread. Lord Aints will peacefully occupy the human cities and reign over this whole region with his love. that emperor will build an alliance to oppose his earthly paradise. Thus, in the not-too-distant future, Lord Aints will probably teach that country what goodness is. Our cause is just. That is something to look forward to. When that fool realizes he has been dancing in the palm of Lord Aints' hand, I wonder how he'll react. You Ray always several moves ahead, my lord. After Demiurge honored Aints with a sincere appraisal, Albedo spoke again with a respectful expression on her face. We are truly unable to grasp the extent of Lord Aints' wisdom. Without the hero Momon he created, a peaceful takeover would have been impossible. He would have had to rule Rantel through fear and violence. He might have used the Golden Princess instead, but that would have been a waste of one of our cards. As I found in my analysis of the intelligence Sebas gathered for us, she's quite no, she's beyond interesting. She'll be very valuable to us. From what I've heard you say, I really want to meet her. Then maybe you could go as a messenger to the kingdom after our country is built. We have to make good on our promise, after all. AINTU2 getting off topic. Don't you think you IWSTING Lord AINZ's precious time? The pair hurriedly apologized, and Aints said, it's fine. In fact, Aints was gleaning information from their chatter and using the time to think up excuses, so it was perfect for him. Ah, but you do so amaze us, Lord Aints. You said it Sholtia. I mean, he came up with a strategy that surprised even Demiurge and Albedo. Magnificent as always, Lord Aints. Why you Ray so cool. I really look up to you. I am ashamed of my lack of intelligence. I can help but feel that if I can keep up with your ideas, I am useless. The Guardian's compliments stabbed into him like knives. He half wondered if they were making fun of him, but the deference, respect, and adoration in their eyes were unmistakable. Aints couldn't say anything in response. He only carried on with his usual act. That's not true, it just happened to turn out that way this time. Plus, Demiurge and Albedo, you figured it all out. No, if you hadn't handled that human the way you did, we wouldn't have been able to guess. It's just as Demiurge says, to see ahead so far into the unknown is just what you would expect from the leader of the supreme beings. I've fallen for you more than ever before. Brilliant as always, Lord Aints. To think you could outsmart the greatest intellect of Nazarick, Demiurge. For real, you Ray awesome, Lord Aints. Yeah, you Ray awesome. I knew your abilities were extraordinary, Lord Aints, but I didn't realize just how extraordinary you are. You are truly Nazarick's greatest treasure. Indubitably, you are so compassionate and wise. There can be no greater ruler than you, Lord Aints. Oh, that reminds me there's something we need to decide. I have absolutely no objection to Lord Aints being a king, but if he is only a king, then he'd be no different from any of those worms out there, right? I think we need to decide on a more suitable title for Lord Aints. The Guardians unanimously approved Demiurge's idea. What do you think, Lord Aints? I have no objections, do as you like. Really, he felt like King Aints Ulgaun was fine. With King attached, there was a palpable increase in his status, to the point where his mental state was forcibly stabilized several times. Then does anyone have any suggestions? I do. Sholtia raised her hand. I think we should pay tribute to Lord Aints' beauty and call him the Gorgeous King. The Guardians oohed in appreciation. Gorgeous King Aints Ulgaun. Now me, Aura raised her hand next. I think we should emphasize Lord Aints' strength. So Power King, meaning a king who is powerful, seems good to me. Several voiced their understanding at last. Power King Aints Ulgaun. You can I suggest one too? Lord Aints is nice, so I think we should make sure everyone knows that. You so what about something like maybe, the Affectionate King? The Guardians all nodded. Affectionate King Aints Ulgaun. I humbly submit. Demiurge paused, probably for dramatic effect, that we pay tribute to Lord Aints' sublime mind and call him the Wise King. The Guardians all seem to find that acceptable. Wise King Aints Ulgaun. Sorry, anything but that, please. How about you, Sebas? In response to Albedo's question, Sebas said, I was thinking that just King would be fine. Then it's my turn, right? Since he is the loftiest of all the supreme beings, I think Supreme King would be good. Admiring gasps went up from the group of Guardians. Supreme King Aints Ulgaun, all the proposals are pretty unique. All eyes turned to the one Guardian who hadn't commented yet. How about you, Cocytus? I realize it's hard to follow up my suggestion of Supreme King, but do you have anything that would be a good fit for Lord Aints? Lord Aints will likely go on to subjugate many creatures by way of his supreme magical ability. Therefore, I believe he should be known as the one who rules over the creatures of darkness and magic itself, the King of Darkness. The Guardians didn't react immediately, but everyone looked at Aints. In their eyes, he saw silent agreement. They all thought there was no greater title for him than this. Albedo seemed a tiny bit disappointed, but even so very good. I'll take Cocytus' suggestion. Aints slowly rose from his seat. Once my kingdom is established, I will be known as the King of Darkness, Aints ul Gaun. He waved off their shower of applause, feeling embarrassed. But it was true that he was a bit tickled. All right, when the time comes for the kingdom and the empire to fight, the moment for Nazarick to show them its might will be at hand. Quite right, Lord Aints. They will try to investigate your powers, but they won't even know that it's part of our plan. Demiurge continued, seeming very pleased. Before negotiating, it's important to give them one good blow to make them understand the power disparity. When the creatures known as fools don't fully grasp the strength of their enemy, they tend to behave stupidly. In that sense, that emperor is a fool. He didn't realize that the smartest thing for him to do was to bow his head and lick Lord Aints' boots. I was wondering about that. Wouldn't allowing humans to lick Lord Aints' boots be a reward? Oh, that's an Albedo question if I ever heard one, but I'd rather lick his body. Aints pretended he couldn't hear Albedo and Sholtia whispering, "Very well, everyone, prepare to increase the renown of Nazarick even further." "Yes, my lord," the chorus of acknowledgements echoed throughout the room. Chapter 2 Preparations for the battle. 1 month later, the court was meeting at Valentia Palace in the Rey Estais kingdom. Gazef stood at attention beside King Ramposa III, who was seated on his throne. The captain of the royal select spotted the 6 great nobles among the many in attendance, and his eyes widened. It was quite rare for all of them to appear at once. The heads of those 6 noble houses possessed territory that was second only to the royal family's holdings in size. Each had some field, whether it was military might, financial assets, or something else, in which they surpassed the king. Consequently, when the king summoned them, they often made up some sort of excuse to be absent. In particular, Marquis Bolarope, the leader of the anti-king faction, never bothered to hide his disdain. For a time it seemed as though the kingdom might collapse from within. Next, Gazef's gaze turned to the 3 royal children who were present. The most eye-catching was the youngest, Princess Renathea Chardelan Ryle Vaself. Then came the second prince, who had distinguished himself by working with the king for the people during the demon disturbance, Zanak Vol Onegana Ryle Vaself. Last was the eldest, Prince Barbaro Andern Ryle Vaself, with his magnificent physique and neatly arranged hair. Marquis Bolarope was working to make sure this prince would be the next king. He was probably attending the meeting at his request. With Bolarope of the nobles faction present, the discussion was sure to get stormy. To take his mind off the bleak worry he felt, Gazef observed the other gathering great nobles. Of the 3 nobles who stood in the king's faction, the one who caught Gazef's eye first was the one wearing the most luxurious clothes out of anyone in the court, Marquis Blumrush. He was nearing 40 years of age. The noble's domain held both gold and mithril mines. The precious metals they produced gave their owner the greatest financial power in the kingdom, but rumor said he was extremely greedy, willing to betray even his family for a single gold coin. In truth, Gazef had heard that he was betraying the kingdom and leaking information to the empire. The only reason such a character was allowed to go unchecked was because they couldn't produce any definitive evidence of wrongdoing. If they beheaded Blumrush, a member of the king's faction, without proof, the nobles under him would undoubtedly turn against the king. If he was taking advantage of that fact to sell intelligence to the empire, it wasn't a stretch to call him a truly terrible human being. Next, Gazef's eyes moved to the most youthful of the great nobles, the handsome Marquis Pespia. He had taken the king's eldest daughter as his wife and succeeded his father upon marrying. His ability and personality were still relatively unknown. However, his father had been exceptional in both areas, so Gazef felt that young Pespia would eventually grow to be similar. Meanwhile, Margrave Uravana was the eldest of the 6 great nobles. His hair was already completely white. Since he didn't have much left, it looked like he had almost none at all. His arms and trunk were like withered branches. But he undoubtedly still possessed the dignity of someone with many years of experience. Margrave Uravana was the most fascinating of the nobles as a person. Standing next to those 3 were the attendees from the nobles' faction. First was the central figure of their faction, Marquis Bolarope. He had the most land of any noble. Numerous scars marked his face. He was a leader, like a warrior. Now in his 50s, his robust body, once trained to eliminate any weakness, was a memory of past glory, but the life in his voice and his raptor-like eyes were vestiges of the warrior within him. He was losing against old age as a fighter, but as a commander, he was probably more talented than Gazef, making him a man of unmatched caliber within the kingdom. Next to him was Count Lytton. The fox-like man was a notch less impressive compared to the other great nobles. So he was always trying to increase his worth in haphazard ways. If he could expand his own power, the suffering of others didn't concern him. This gave him a rather poor reputation among the other nobles. That was why he attached himself to Marquis Bolarope to escape the hostility of his peers. The last man belonged to the nobles' faction. He had blonde hair slicked back and blue, almond-shaped eyes. His complexion was a special pallor, reserved for those who rarely saw the light of day. That, combined with his tall, lean figure, gave him the impression of a snake. He should have been just under 40 years old, but his sickly skin tone made him seem far older. Gazef had mixed feelings about that man Marquis Revan. He looked away from the noble. The power struggle in the palace was even more complicated by the question of who would be the next king. Marquis Bolarope and Count Lytton, from the nobles' faction, and Margrave Uravana, from the King's faction, nominated the eldest prince, Barbaro. Many others, regardless of faction, backed Marquis Pespia, husband of the King's eldest daughter. Marquis Revan supported the second prince, Zanak. Meanwhile, Marquis Blumrush acted as if the whole thing had nothing to do with him. This situation was the reason the king was still keeping the throne warm. He suspected that if he named a successor as things stood, a civil war might break out. Up until recently, Gazef thought it wouldn't make a difference who became king, but now he personally supported Prince Zanak. Alternatively, he would have accepted the third princess, Rena, though it was a long shot. The kingdom had never been ruled by a queen, so it was probably impossible. All right, let us begin. The king's tone of voice was just a touch different from the usual. Those with sharp ears had surely already guessed the reason they had been gathered. Those who hadn't caught on earlier assumed serious expressions when they sensed the slight change in atmosphere. A herald came from the Empire. Read the declaration he brought us. In response to the king's order, the chamberlain standing by next to him read the parchment. Essentially, it read as follows: the Baharuth Empire recognizes Nazarick, the organization led by the King of Darkness, Aints Ul Gaun, as a country. And the two nations have formed an alliance. Rantel and its environs originally belonged to the King of Darkness, Aints Ul Gaun. The Rey Estais kingdom is unjustly occupying the land. It must be returned to its rightful owner. If you do not comply, the Empire will assist the King of Darkness, Aints Ul Gaun, in his invasion of the kingdom to reclaim his territory. This is an act of justice to liberate the land from wrongful rule. The message was just so absurd. Complying could only be deemed insanity. We did look back through the history of the kingdom, but there is no record of an Aints Ul Gaun occupying the Rantel area, so this claim is naturally invalid. Then it's just some nutcase nonsense, not even a real accusation, a stirring voice barked. As if they took courage from Marquis Bolarope, who had a history of military achievements, other nobles began to agree. The timing slipped quite a bit, but isn't this just the Empire's annual invasion? They always come up with some excuse. Maybe this time, they simply couldn't think of anything, so they dragged out that caster's name. The King of Darkness is quite a title. I'd like to get a look at this guy. Some chuckles went up in response to Count Lytton's comments. It had originated among his followers. However, the Count shifted his narrowed, fox-like eyes, turning his gaze on Gazef with a hint of condescension. I feel like I've heard this madman's name somewhere before. Am I wrong, Captain Stronov? It's the name of the caster who rescued me on the outskirts of Rantel when I was there. Count Lytton broke into a sinister smile and said in an icy voice, I see. So he must have saved you because he thought you were one of his people. Nobles here and there suppressed their laughter. No one admonished the slight. Gazef was born a commoner, so most of the nobles' faction hated him. The king might have spoken up if the insult had originated from someone in his faction, but as Count Lytton was from the opposing faction, he could only furrow his brow. Don't you think, then, that it was the Empire that burned the farming villages near Rantel? It seems like you thought it was the theocracy, Captain. And the one who rescued you was Gaun, right? Couldn't he have been in cahoots with the Empire? Someone suggested he was meant to be a spy all along. You didn't see the corpses of the ones who had cornered you, correct? The powerful members of the six scriptures flashed through Gazef's mind. At the same time, he saw Aints Ul Gown. Regarding the corpses, it's as you say, Count Lytton, but I don't think there's a conspiracy. The ones who attacked me when I was in Khan were stronger than Imperial Knights could be. They were giving orders to angels, so I have no doubt they were from the slain theocracy. Why would the theocracy do such a thing? How should I know? It would have been such a relief to be able to answer. As Gazef struggled to come up with a reply, help came from someone next to Count Lytton. Who cares about the crazy caster? We need to figure out how to reply to the false Emperor's declaration. Your Majesty, Marquis Bolarope is right.